Narcissistic mom kicked me out at 18 to marry a rich guy, then invited me to her wedding after 6 years to look good. But I ruined her big day, and now her new husband wants to leave her. I still remember the day my mother, Veronica, kicked me out of the house. I was 18, fresh out of high school, with dreams and aspirations still in their infancy. Veronica was a classic narcissist, always obsessed with appearances, status, and wealth. Her love was conditional, and her attention fleeting, especially when it came to me. My father had left us when I was young, unable to bear Veronica's manipulative and controlling ways. Since then, it had been just the two of us. I learned early on that nothing I did would ever be good enough for her. She was perpetually disappointed in my choices, my friends, my hobbies, VJ, everything about me seemed to fall short of her grandiose expectations. One sunny afternoon, as I was packing my bags for college, Veronica barged into my room with a smug smile on her face. "Pack your things," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're moving out today." I was stunned. "What? Why? I've met someone," she announced, her eyes gleaming. "He's wealthy, influential, and he's asked me to marry him. There's no room in his life for a grown child who can't support themselves." I stared at her, feeling a mix of shock and betrayal. "But I'm going to college. I have plans VDJ." She cut me off with a wave of her hand. "Plans that don't involve me. You're 18, legally an adult. It's time you fend for yourself." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me to process the magnitude of her words. In that moment, I realized that her love had always been conditional, based on what I could provide for her, or how I could enhance her image. I was a pawn in her game of social climbing, and now that she had found a wealthier player, I was discarded. Life after being kicked out. The first few months were the hardest. I couch surfed at friends' places, took up odd jobs, and scraped by on whatever I could earn. It was a humbling experience, one that forced me to grow up quickly, but it also taught me resilience and the value of true friendship. My friends became my family, offering me the support and love that Veronica had never been capable of giving. Chapter 1. Struggling to survive. The first night, I stayed with my best friend Jamie. His parents welcomed me with open arms, providing a temporary refuge. Jamie and I had been inseparable since elementary school, and his family had always treated me like one of their own. But I couldn't stay there forever. I needed to find a way to support myself. I took up a series of odd jobs, VDJ waiting tables, delivering newspapers, even cleaning houses. It was exhausting work, but it kept me afloat. The nights were the hardest, filled with uncertainty and fear. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I would ever escape this cycle of struggle. Chapter 2. Building a new life. As time passed, I found a stable job at a local CAF GC. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to rent a small apartment. It wasn't much VJ at a tiny studio with peeling wallpaper and creaky floors VJJ, but it was mine. I took pride in making it my own, decorating it with thrift store finds and DIY projects. I enrolled in community college, determined to build a better future for myself. Balancing work and studies was challenging, but I was driven by a fierce determination to prove to myself, DJ, and to Veronica VDJ that I was more than the failure she had made me out to be. Chapter 3. Finding a new family. Over the next 6 years, I achieved more than I had ever thought possible. I graduated with honors, landed a well-paying job at a marketing firm, and even started my own side business as a freelance graphic designer. My life was fulfilling and rich in ways that had nothing to do with money. My friends became my true family. Jamie was a constant source of support, always ready with a word of encouragement or a helping hand. I also grew close to my coworkers, especially Sarah, who became one of my best friends. We bonded over late-night work sessions and shared dreams of success. I also met Alex, my partner during this time. Alex was everything I had ever hoped for in a partner VJ: kind, supportive, and endlessly patient. Our relationship was built on mutual respect and love, something I had never experienced with Veronica. Together, we created a life filled with joy and contentment, the wedding invitation. Then one day, a fancy envelope arrived in the mail. It was an invitation to Veronica's wedding. I hadn't heard from her in years, not since she had unceremoniously kicked me out. The invitation felt like a slap in the face, a reminder of the painful past. Yet it also sparked a curiosity within me. Why now? Why invite me after all these years? Chapter 4. The invitation. The invitation was meticulously designed, printed on heavy cardstock with intricate gold embossing. Veronica had always had a flair for the dramatic. Inside, a note in her elegant handwriting read, "Dearest, I hope this finds you well. I am delighted to invite you to my wedding with Charles Montgomery. It would mean the world to me if you could attend and share this joyous occasion." Warm regards, Veronica. I stared at the note, emotions swirling within me. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to reject her attempt at reconciliation VJ or whatever this was. But another part of me was curious. What had changed in her life? What kind of man was Charles, and why did she suddenly want me to be a part of her life again? After much deliberation and encouragement from Jamie, Sarah, and Alex, I decided to attend. Part of me wanted closure, to see for myself the life Veronica had traded me for. Another part of me wanted to show her that I had succeeded despite her abandonment. I was no longer the helpless teenager she had discarded. I was strong, independent, and thriving. The wedding day. The wedding was held at an extravagant venue, a testament to the wealth of Veronica's new husband, Charles. The place was adorned with lavish decorations, and the guests were all dressed to the nines. As I walked in, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I was here to face my past, to show Veronica VJ and myself VDJ that I had moved beyond her toxic influence. Chapter 5. Arriving at the venue. The venue was breathtaking VJ, a sprawling estate with manicured gardens, sparkling fountains, and a grand ballroom. As I walked through the ornate gates, I felt a mix of awe and apprehension. I had never been in such a luxurious setting before. The guests, dressed in designer clothes, milled about, sipping champagne and exchanging pleasantries. I spotted Veronica almost immediately. She looked radiant in her designer gown, basking in the attention of her wealthy guests. When she saw me, her eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly composed herself and walked over, her smile tight and insincere. "Well, look who's here," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I see you've managed to clean up nicely." "Hello, Veronica," I replied coolly. "Congratulations on your wedding." She smirked. "Thank you, I hope you enjoy the celebration. Try not to embarrass yourself." I ignored her jab and mingled with the guests, many of whom were curious about my presence. They asked polite questions about my life, clearly fishing for gossip. I answered them with poise, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me flustered. Chapter 6. Confrontations and Revelations. As the evening wore on, the tension between Veronica and me grew palpable. It was clear that she had invited me not out of any sense of reconciliation, but to parade her new life in front of me. She wanted to show off her wealth and status, to remind me of what I had lost. But I wasn't here to play her game. During the speeches, Veronica's true colors began to show. She made a point of mentioning how difficult it had been to raise me on her own, casting herself as a martyr. She spoke of her new life with Charles as a reward for her struggles, a testament to her resilience and determination. It was all I could do to keep from rolling my eyes. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and walked to the microphone. The room fell silent, and all eyes were on me. I could see the anticipation in Veronica's eyes, waiting for me to say something that would embarrass myself or validate her narrative. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Veronica's child. I wanted to take a moment to share a few words about resilience and strength." I paused, letting my words sink in. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, testing our limits and forcing us to grow. 6 years ago, I faced one of the biggest challenges of my life. I was thrown out of my home with nothing but a few belongings and a heart full of uncertainty. There were murmurs among the guests, and I could see Veronica stiffen. But in the face of adversity, we find our true strength. We discover who we really are. I found my strength in the love and support of friends who became my family. I built a life for myself, one that I'm proud of, one that doesn't rely on wealth or status. I looked directly at Veronica. And for that, I'm grateful. Because it taught me the value of resilience and the power of self-worth. I hope that everyone here finds that same strength within themselves, no matter what challenges they face. With that, I stepped away from the microphone, leaving the room in stunned silence. Veronica's face was a mask of rage and humiliation. Her perfect facade had been shattered, and there was no way to spin my words to her advantage. Chapter 7. The Fallout. The fallout was immediate. Guests whispered and exchanged glances, and Charles, her new husband, looked visibly shaken. He approached me later, his expression troubled. "I had no idea," he said quietly, "about any of it." I shrugged. "Now you do." The rest of the evening was a blur. Veronica tried to salvage the event, but the damage was done. Her carefully crafted image was in tatters, and her new marriage was off to a rocky start. Charles was distant, clearly reevaluating his decision to marry a woman who had so callously discarded her own child. In the days that followed, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Charles had left Veronica. He couldn't reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the reality of her actions. Veronica was alone once again, her dreams of a wealthy, glamorous life shattered. As for me, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced my past and come out stronger for it. Veronica's actions no longer had power over me. I had built a life filled with love, support, and genuine happiness, and that, more than anything, was the greatest victory. Chapter 8. Moving Forward. Life moved on, and so did I. The experience only reinforced my belief in the power of resilience and the importance of surrounding oneself with people who truly care. I continued to thrive, knowing that my worth was not defined by my past, but by the strength and courage I had found within myself. Alex and I grew closer, our relationship deepening with each passing day. We talked about our future, our dreams, and our plans. Together, we built a home filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. My friends remained a constant source of support, always there to lift me up when I needed it most. I also began to give back to the community that had supported me during my darkest times. I volunteered at local shelters, mentoring young people who were going through similar struggles. It was a way for me to pay forward the kindness and support I had received, and to help others find their own path to resilience and strength. Chapter 9. A new chapter. Years passed, and life continued to unfold in beautiful, unexpected ways. My business flourished, and I found joy in helping others achieve their dreams. Alex and I traveled, explored new places, and created countless memories together. Our bond grew stronger, rooted in love and mutual understanding. One day, I received a letter from Veronica. It was a simple, heartfelt note, expressing her regret for her past actions and asking for forgiveness. She wrote about the pain of losing Charles, the loneliness she had felt, and the realization that her pursuit of wealth and status had cost her the most important relationships in her life. I read the letter several times, emotions swirling within me. Forgiveness was not something that came easily, especially after everything I had been through. But as I looked back on my journey, I realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only weigh me down. I had built a beautiful life for myself, one filled with love, joy, and fulfillment. I didn't need to carry the burden of the past any longer. I decided to meet with Veronica. It was a difficult conversation filled with tears, apologies, and raw emotions, but it was also a chance for healing, for both of us. I didn't know if we could ever fully repair our relationship, but I was willing to try, for my own sake, and for the sake of moving forward. Chapter 10. Embracing the future. As time went on, Veronica and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. It was a process filled with ups and downs, but there was progress. We learned to communicate, to understand each other, and to let go of the past. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. In the end, the journey had come full circle. I had faced my past, embraced my present, and looked forward to the future with hope and optimism. The lessons I had learned about resilience, strength, and self-worth had shaped me into the person I was meant to be. And for that, I was grateful. Life is a journey, filled with challenges and triumphs. It's not about the destination, but about the strength we find within ourselves along the way. And as I looked at the life I had built, I knew that I had found my true strength due to the strength to overcome, to forgive, and to thrive. Are you ready for the next story? My dad wanted to marry his young girlfriend just 2 weeks after my mom left us. When my mom left us, it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the empty closet where her clothes used to be, trying to make sense of it all. It had only been 2 weeks since she packed her bags and walked out the door, leaving my dad and me to figure things out on our own. It was a Tuesday evening when my dad called me into the living room. He had been acting strangely over the past few days, distracted, almost eager about something. I thought maybe he was just trying to keep himself busy, but nothing could have prepared me for what he was about to say. "Hey, kiddo, we need to talk," he began, his voice unusually upbeat. He patted the couch beside him, and I reluctantly sat down, dreading whatever conversation was coming next. "I know things have been tough since your mom left," he continued, not meeting my eyes. "But I've met someone. Her name is Emma, and she makes me really happy. We've just been seeing each other for a little while now." I blinked, trying to process his words. "What do you mean, a little while? Mom just left 2 weeks ago." I know, he said quickly, holding up his hands as if to ward off my confusion. "But sometimes when you meet the right person, you just know. And, well, I asked her to marry me." I stared at him in disbelief. "You did what?" "I know it seems fast," he said, finally looking at me. "But Emma's really great. I think you'll like her if you give her a chance." I felt like I was falling into a void. 2 weeks? 2 weeks since Mom left us, and now Dad was talking about marrying someone else. I barely knew how to deal with one parent leaving, let alone another one moving on so quickly. "Dad, this is crazy," I said, shaking my head. "You can't just replace Mom like this." He looked hurt, but also determined. "I'm not trying to replace her. I'm just trying to move forward. Emma and I, we just clicked. And I think UVDTM will see that she's a good person. Chev DJTM's coming over for dinner tomorrow. I want you to meet her. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. You already invited her over? Yes, and I hope you'll give her a fair chance, he said, his tone pleading now. I know this is hard, but I really believe this is the right thing for all of us. I got up and walked out of the room, feeling like my world was spinning out of control. How could he expect me to accept this? 2 weeks ago, we were a family. Now everything was different. The next day, Emma came over. She was younger than my dad by at least a decade, with bright eyes and a warm smile. She tried to engage me in conversation, asking about school and my interests, but I could barely respond. I was too angry, too hurt. It wasn't VDJTMT her fault, but she represented everything that was wrong with my life now. Dinner was awkward. Dad was trying too hard to make everything seem normal, while I sat in sullen silence, picking at my food. Emma was polite and kind, but I couldn't bring myself to open up to her. It felt like a betrayal to Mom. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. What do you think? He asked, hopeful. Isn't she great? I wanted to scream that it wasn't DJTMT fair, that he was moving too fast, that I wasn't VJTMT ready for this. But all I could manage was a quiet, I don't VJTMT no, Dad. It VJTMT's just a lot. He nodded, his expression softening. I understand. It VDJTM's a big change for both of us. But give it time, okay? Web DJ Tim, I'll get through this together. I nodded, but inside I wasn't VJTMT so sure. Everything was changing too quickly, and I felt like I was being swept along without any control. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't VJTMT stop thinking about Mom, wondering where she was and if she knew what was happening. I missed her so much, and I wasn't VDJTMT ready to let go of the life we had before. The weeks that followed were difficult. Emma continued to come over, and slowly, despite my initial resistance, I began to see why my dad liked her. She was patient, understanding, and genuinely cared about us. But even as I started to accept her presence, a part of me still longed for things to go back to the way they were. A month after that fateful dinner, Dad and Emma decided to have a small engagement party at our house. They invited a few close friends and family members. I felt a knot in my stomach the entire time, but I knew I had to put on a brave face. As the guests arrived, I plastered a smile on my face and greeted them, trying my best to appear supportive. Emma's parents were there too. They were pleasant and seemed genuinely happy for their daughter. Her mom, Linda, spent some time talking to me, sharing stories about Emma's childhood and how she had always been a compassionate person. Despite my resistance, I found myself warming up to her a little. Linda had a way of making me feel comfortable, and I appreciated that she wasn't pushing too hard for immediate acceptance. As the evening progressed, I found myself sitting alone on the porch, looking out at the stars. The sounds of laughter and conversation floated out from the house, but I felt disconnected from it all. The door creaked open and Emma stepped out, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. Mind if I join you? She asked, her voice gentle. I shrugged. Sure. She handed me a cup and sat down beside me. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our drinks. Finally, she spoke. I know this is hard for you, she said softly. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I want you to know that I'm not trying to replace your mom. I just want to be here for you and your dad. I looked at her, searching for any hint of insincerity, but her eyes were earnest, and I could see the concern etched on her face. It's just, everything happened so fast, I admitted. I feel like I didn't even have time to process Mom leaving, and now this. Emma nodded. I understand, and I'm sorry if it feels like we're rushing things. Your dad and I, we just felt this connection, and we wanted to move forward. But that doesn't mean we're not thinking about you and your feelings. We want you to be a part of this, to feel included and heard. I appreciated her honesty. It was the first time someone had really acknowledged how I was feeling since Mom left. Thanks, I said quietly. It's just going to take some time. She smiled. Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere. As the party wound down and the guests left, I found myself feeling a little more at ease. Emma wasn't trying to force anything, and that made a difference. Maybe, just maybe, things would turn out okay. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, I started to adjust to the new normal. Emma moved in with us, and while it was still strange, I began to see how happy she made my dad. He was more relaxed, more himself, and that made me realize how much he had been struggling too. One evening, about 6 months after Mom left, Dad and I had a heart-to-heart. We were sitting in the backyard enjoying the cool evening breeze. I miss her too, you know, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. I looked at him, surprised. Mom? He nodded. Yeah, she was a big part of my life, and it hurts that she's gone. But I also know that I have to move forward. For my own sake and for yours. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time he had openly talked about his feelings since the separation. Emma makes me happy, he continued. And I think she can make you happy too, if you give her a chance. I thought about that. Emma had been nothing but kind and understanding, always making an effort to include me and make me feel comfortable. Maybe it was time to let go of some of my resentment. I'll try, I said finally. I promise I'll try. Dad smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. That's all I ask. As I sat there, I realized that life was always going to be full of changes, some of them painful and unexpected. But it was also full of opportunities for new beginnings, if we were willing to embrace them. And maybe, just maybe, Emma could be a part of our new beginning.